Well, shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, welcoming you, joining us in our live class. This is the 11th of December 2019. We are presently learning in my book, Protection from Evil. Protection from Evil is not available at this time in hard copy. It is only available in eBook. If you want to acquire a copy and follow along with us, it is available for an $18 donation to our school. And you just get that information from any one of our emails or follow any of the links that we have, pretty much all over the place here on Facebook, on YouTube, and everywhere else. But tonight, as I was preparing this class, I was actually considering discussing a very important point about this week's Torah portion, which is Vayishlach, and the psychic, spiritual necessities of dealing with the forces of evil, which is pretty much the topic of my book. But we had an episode that happened just yesterday, actually, with a shooting in Jersey City in New Jersey. And for some reason, what happened brought back for me a lot of old ideas, a lot of old memories. And the basic point is this: you will never have spiritual protection unless it is side by side with physical protection. So I'm going to talk a little bit about psychic and spiritual protection, the nature of certain types of souls, and we're going to really have to hone in on a very, very important topic of physical self-defense. So, in Protection from Evil, I actually wrote about this in chapter 22, which surprisingly is on page 314. 314 is the gematria of Shaddai, which is the name of Metatron, which is the angel of protection. It didn't actually intend that to happen, but it did. On the bottom of the page, I wrote like this, and I quote myself here: psychic activity absolutely needs to be materialized in a physical vessel. Unless the physical vessel is both present and strong, there can be no actual manifestation of any psychic energy. Now, this is based upon a very deep Kabbalistic concept. It's brought down by, of course, the Ariel, Rabbi Chaim Vital, about the relationship of what we call Or and Kli, light and vessel. Light and vessel, integral. It's body and soul. With all of our talk about Kabbalah and mysticism and psychic war and psychic attack, if you get so heavenly minded, you will become no earthly good, and you will lose the point, the purpose, and the accomplishment of everything what the spiritual is all about. To start off, let me share with you a little insight into this week's Torah portion called Vayishlach. It deals with the confrontation, of course, between Jacob and Esau. Well, for those of you who are familiar with the biblical story, Genesis chapter 34, 35, and all the rest, Jacob was living with his uncle Laban for all these years. Things went sour, and now he's coming back. And he's going to meet his brother Esau after being separated for 20 years. Jacob sends messengers, and Esau is coming to meet him with an army of 400 men. And people say, oh my goodness, Esau is going to get him. And people miss the point all the time. Ask yourself this, all right? With every portrayal of Jacob and Esau, let's use modern terms, and you'll forgive me if you don't like my slang, okay? Esau was a badass, and Jacob was a pussy, okay? That's the real way of looking at it in modern terminology. What did it say? Esau was a man of the field. He was out there hunting, lifting animals, killing. Jacob was sitting in the tent. It's nice, right? When was the last time a badass needed an army of 400 men to kick the snoot out of or to kill a pussy. It doesn't happen. He never needed it. But Ellie's laughing over here at my slang. But she knows me. She knows this is the way I talk. I give you what's real. That is what kosher Torah is about. It's what's real. And we're going to talk about is very, very real tonight. So if you don't like my slang by talking in modern English vernacular, close your ears, all right? Believe me, the worst is yet to come. Let's get back to our little story here. Good old Jacob was living with Uncle Laban. Uncle Laban was well renowned as a master of the dark arts. He was an emperor, a Darth Vader type. He was, if anybody was a badass, Laban was. He could manipulate by the power of his mind. And we see from the stories of all the problems that Jacob had with Laban. But Jacob bested Laban. Jacob learned all the psychic battle forces, and he succeeded. We are all familiar with the very famous story of the angel, it says actually a man, who comes with wrestling with Jacob for his encounter with Esau. Most people don't pay attention. Where do you think this angel came from? God sent him? Where does it say that? Did Esau send him? Where does it say that? Just says there he was. The secret which was well known. God didn't send the angel. The angel of Esau certainly didn't choose to come. I discussed this in a class I did this morning. Go online into my YouTube and Facebook feeds. You'll see it there. Esau's angel didn't need to come and fight with Jacob. Esau was a tough, mean, machine. You want to think of what Esau? Think of like somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right? Think of like, Rambo or somebody, mean, nasty, intense. That's Esau. And who's Jacob? Oh, nice little guy. Not anymore. Jacob bested Laban. He became a master of the dark and light arts himself. He stood at the bottom of that ladder of the Sulam. Remember the ladder of ascent? The angels going down. And he became the gatekeeper. He called upon the angel of Esau. He conjured him. He forced him to come and fought him in battle and subdued him. And that is when the angel said, you are no longer a natural human being, a deceiver, supplanter. You have accomplished the fighting with the heavenly forces. And this, to this day, is the message of what it means to be Yisrael, one who fights and wins. Esau was very well aware of Jacob's power. Esau could take Jacob physically and snap him in half like that. Like Arnold, take him, break him. But Jacob now had a power that freaked Esau out. Esau knew that the power of the psychic was stronger than the power of the physical, and that he had no chance anymore of beating up this little pussy, who is no longer a pussy, who is now a master. And that is why Esau knew there's only one way there's ever a hope, and that's to win the physical battle. And that is why he brought an army of 400 men. Because Esau was well aware of the house of Isaac. He knew his uncle Laban too, knew these forces, and knew that with a projection of thought, Esau could twist and turn the minds of people. But against 400, maybe Esau would have a chance. And even that, Jacob bested him in that. He conquered that angel. And the next day, just like he did with the birthright, just like he did with the blessing, he deceived his brother again. Oh, I'm in peace with you, brother. I missed you, brother. Oh, we're crying on each other's shoulders. Ooh. And Esau is deceived into taking the role of the Bachor, the firstborn. And again says, come with me, brother. You'll come with my house. We'll be You could be subservient to me, which is the natural, normal way, because I'm the firstborn, right? Jacob says, but of course, brother. And they says, come on, let's go. And Jacob says, oh, I can't. I got the young kids and stuff like that. So Esau says, fine. Esau goes right. Jacob goes left. He did it to him again. And we know what happens. Continue this story, right? Psychic warfare. You got to know how to fight. Jacob's daughter Dinah, she goes out amongst the people. She was not psychically prepared. She was not physically prepared. What do I mean by physically prepared? Think about this. If Dinah went out amongst the people, went to the shuk, wants to see the local people, and if her brothers, Shimon and Levi, just so happened to have chaperoned her as opposed to her going alone, she would no way have been kidnapped and raped. You see, in our Torah tradition, we speak of the vital importance of modesty and proper behavior. And if you look in our culture today, ever since the, in quote, sexual revolution, we have had a cancerous growth of promiscuity, wherein which all perversions have not only become the norm, we demand that they be accepted by everyone. And you know something? This is the psychic war. This is the battle that we fight right now. Because ultimately, if you're going to accept good for evil and evil for good, you've lost half the battle. I'm not going to get into that right now because I want to focus on that other side. If Dinah was only properly chaperoned, none of this would have ever happened. But she was, I don't know, naive maybe, rebellious possibly, and these things happen when you're not properly prepared. In modern times, if Dinah was to be going out, all right, maybe Jacob, good old daddy, or one of the brothers would have said, you know what, sweetie, you're going out into the city, do us a favor. Pack that little Taurus 9mm in your purse just in case something happens. All right? And if then somebody grabs, he takes it, boom. How long then would the kidnap and rape have gone on? And you could say, well, it was God's purpose. You know, don't give me this God's purpose stuff. All right? I don't want to hear that. Because bottom line, look what the end result was. Hundreds of people died because of one man who kidnapped and raped a woman. You know, this is the tribal mentality of the Middle East. Nothing's changed in certain circles. You go into some of the old classical Arab circles to this day, and you date the wrong person, you try to act in the wrong way, they'll still kill you. To this very day, go read the stories coming out of even amongst the Palestinians, Syrians, certain areas in Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, you know, all over the place. This is their culture. Nothing's changed in thousands of years. Right or wrong, good or bad, is not my place to argue right now. But when that mentality comes to this country, we have terrorism. Because you have the people with that type of morality coming to the United States or any Western country, and they see the promiscuity of both the men and the women and everything going on, and they look at everybody and being, you'll forgive my language if you don't like it, too bad. What a bunch of whores. And I'm not just talking about the women, the men too. That's how they look at Westerners. Immoral individuals. And people, Westerners, who have had a tremendous amount of immorality and have suffered because of it, usually come to some kind of rigid religion as a means of, equal and opposite to make atonement for themselves. And this is why many people will come to Haredi Judaism, why many people are converting to Islam, because they find the security of that old way very, very saving for them, right? Even those who come to Christianity and, quote, become born again, they don't take on liberal Christianity. They take on the real, serious, conservative forms. There is a reason for this. Now, with all this being said, we're dealing with men, we're dealing with women. This is not a sexist thing here. When we talk about the laws of modesty, tzniut, right? This is applicable for men and women both. We will tell women, you don't go out there in your little mini skirts and your spiked heels and looking like, you're for hire. This is actually a big problem, believe it or not, in ultra-Orthodox circles, where you have married women who could be, mothers of 5, 10 kids. And yet they will wear very tight clothing. They'll have, $10,000 wigs on their head. And many a rabbi have commented that that is a state of modesty, which is just not appropriate. You must understand, when we're talking about psychic energy, forget up there in the heavenly worlds, dealing with the angels and the demons. Forget them. We've got to deal with right here, right now. And if you create for yourself attention, attraction, why on earth are you going to be shocked and surprised if and when you get that attention? If you walk around with the expression of being weak and a victim, why on earth would you be surprised when you get treated like a victim, when you get victimized? Think about this. Right? I'm going to read to you something here, something I wrote many, many years ago. I'll talk to you about that in a second. About people who walk down the street and they don't pay attention. Think about this. If you saw a Hell's Angel, big, tough, burly biker guy, and he's walking down the street, what are you going to do? You're not going to puff out your chest. I'm going to show him how to kick his butt, right? You're not going to pick on him. You're going to walk to the other side of the street because you know he's trouble. Okay? Pick whatever tough guy metaphor, tough woman metaphor that you want to fill that in. Okay? It doesn't matter. But now, let's take a look at the weak and the wimpy Jew. He's walking around here, right? You don't have any fear of that individual. You might not even have any respect for that individual. And therefore, you might feel you could just walk all over that individual. And many times people do. And that's the problem. You see, it's all about how you appear in public. If you appear weak, you're going to be treated weak. If you appear strong, you're going to be treated strong. If you see people are looking at you, just looking, put your head down, oh, I hope they don't notice me. You look back and you give a very tough look. Right? Someone wants trouble, you let them know they're going to get trouble. Right? I don't care if the guy's 7 foot tall and 500 pounds. Right? I might be a junkyard dog. I might be a chihuahua. I might not be able to bite him in the throat, but at least I'll bite him on the ankles. Right? I don't care. They got to know that you want trouble? You've come to the right place. That is Yisrael, the one who struggles and wins. Many, many years ago, Ralph Bakshi came out with a cartoon called Wizards. It's a story about thousands of years in the future, in which magic rules the world pretty much. And the story follows a line pretty much similar to our Jacob and Esau story from the Torah, in which two wizards are born, one good, one evil. And long story short, they have a big fight. And the good guy wins and kicks the bad guy out and sends him to the dark side of the earth. Well, the bad brother, of course, now wants revenge, and he seeks out ancient technology to conquer the world. And he finds Nazi propaganda, turns the whole world into Nazism, and seeks to take it over. So the big battle at the end of the movie is where the good brother has to fight now the bad brother. It's It's kind of, again, like a Jacob Esau kind of thing. And this is what's so important here. I actually put the clip of this from YouTube on my Facebook feed. You can see it there. The good brother turns to the bad brother for the ultimate fight of magic, the powers. And the good brother turns to the bad brother and says, let me show you a trick that Mom showed me when you weren't around. Turns to him and says, I'm glad you changed your name, you SOB. He pulls out a gun, bam, bam, kills the brother. The war's over. Just like Esau. He was going to fight the war at 400 men if he had to. You see, physically speaking, we have a Torah obligation. That's right, this is actually religion now. A Torah obligation of self-defense. Now listen here, and this is very important. We are not violent people. We do not seek violence. We don't want to kick ass. We don't want to be badass. We don't want to be anything. Really, we just want to be left alone. But our world won't let that happen, now will it? Look at all of Jewish history. Look at what happened in Europe. Rabbi Meir, my teacher, told me a very great secret from the language of the Ariel why the Holocaust happened. And I'm going to share this with you right now. I haven't done this in a long time. According to the Torah of the Ariel, there are different types of souls. Based upon biblical examples, they're given the names of biblical characters. The tough, badass kind of soul is called the source from Cain, the firstborn. And actually, Cain became reincarnated into Esau, and that's another story. But another kind of soul comes in Abel, Hevel. And you all know the biblical story. Cain kills Abel. Well, we all know sin of murder is a pretty bad thing. And Cain has to, rectify that. But Abel also committed a sin according to the Kabbalah. And what was that sin? He didn't fight back. He was passive. And in that passivity, he lost his life. And the Kabbalah teaches that all souls that emanate from this spiritual source called Abel, Hevel, will always suffer violence and death, simply to teach them the lesson that they need to fight back. And that these souls will be spread a little bit in each and every generation. So each and every generation will have its victims. But if Hashem, God, wants to speed up the redemption, this is out of the Kitvei Hari now, he would take all of the souls, or the majority of them, put them into one time in one place, and let them all suffer together at once to speed up the process. And that supposedly was the Holocaust. Everybody knows. People were in the Holocaust. They prayed. Heaven had a busy signal. There was nothing there. Who survived? Mostly those who fought. Those who were ready to be badass, even in the worst of situations. And what did these survivors of the Holocaust do when the Holocaust was over? They didn't look to God and say, oh, hallelujah, thank you for saving us. No, they said, you know what, God? This is what you do to us? Fine, you stay in heaven. We'll take care of the rest. We'll bring our own Geula. And they fought. And they became tough. And they became badass. And they started something called the Haganah, all right, L'Yisrael, which became the Tzava, Haganah L'Yisrael, Tzahal. They started the Israeli army, and that started the Medinat Israel. And that's why they're so adamantly secular. Why? Because they say, God, you know what? You stay up in heaven. We'll take care of things. You know something? God blesses their endeavors. Just like God blessed Abraham, just like God blesses Jacob. It's a big, big secret of the power of heaven coming down to earth. For those of you who are on my email list, I am writing a series. I'm writing now. I wrote this a while back, but I'm publishing it now for you. Victories in the Occult War. In my emails, I'm serializing this week. And just today, I sent out that translation from the Shada Kavanot of the Ari, which is the foundation of these teachings. Somebody in text here is mentioning the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. You know the story about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising? I hope a bunch of people stuck together. And the small band got together and said, you know what? We're not going to let the Nazis kill us. Screw that. Let's go fight back. We die, but let's take some of them down with us. Do you know who their leader was? Big, tough Arnold Schwarzenegger type, right? A 16-year-old kid who years before Meir Kahane said, never again. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have been a big proponent of both martial arts for self-defense as well as, owning firearms and whatever type of legal weaponry, please, that is necessary to defend ourselves on the streets. When I talk about martial arts today, and I've been learning martial arts, I'm going to age myself now, right? 50 years? Believe it or not, 50 years. Actually longer. I started with judo, then we did the taekwondo, we did a little Shotokan, then I went into my favorite, which is, of course, the Hungar, which, I'm Nanchuan guy, so a Southern style Hungar, Southern style Shaolin. My years in Israel with, Krav Maga, coming back, doing Tai Chi Chuan, doing Bagua Chuan, and then of course, with Master Zhang in Chicago, Nanchuan, which is, again, it's more Southern style. Over and over, training. But you want to know what's the best of it all? Hand-to-hand, close quarter, military style combat. Because if I'm on the street and somebody who's walking and passing me doesn't know that I'm a badass, but thinks that I'm a pussy because I'm a Jew, right? And they put a hand on me, I'm not just going to go, hey, I don't want any trouble. No, I'm going to take that hand. I don't care who it is. I'm going to try to grab by the thumb and break the thumb. And if I can, I'm going to twist the wrist to try to break the wrist. And as he goes down, I'm going to try to plant my foot into his throat. I could break his trachea. Them's the breaks. Yeah. In other words, understand, just like it says in the Gemara, someone comes after you, you come after them first. And don't wait for them. You attack first. This is very, very important. Now, people say, oh, no, I don't want to be violent. I don't want to be violent. Do you think I want to be attacked? I most certainly do not. But I'll tell you this. I don't care who or what and when and where and why. Somebody attacks me, one of us is going down. All right? I can't guarantee you that I'm going to win. I'm an old man already. All right? I'm not as fast and tough as I was when I was young. But I'll tell you this. Just because I'm a little older, doesn't mean I'm any slower. Actually, I got a lot more of my repertoire of little techniques if and when I ever had to use something. And I pray I never have to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to fight. You will learn, again, Shaolin way, Bruce Lee, right? The way to fight is not to fight. So someone who wants to call me names, don't call me names. I don't give a damn about that. Remember we used to say as children, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Do they still say that? I don't know. So someone's, you're a dirty Jew, you're this, you're that. Yeah, sure, okay. And I can call them names back. But once the name calling stops, if anything gets physical, someone's going down. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be permanent. And this close quarter type of combat, I only teach privately, one-on-one, to those individuals who need to know. I've taught police officers, I've taught military people, but I won't teach publicly because a lot of this stuff could be illegal. And God forbid, I'm not going to get in trouble, teaching somebody who I am not confident of their temperament to use some of these techniques. But ladies, especially you like Dina, anything can happen. Look what goes on in the world. Every woman, in my opinion, specifically needs to learn close quarter combat. Tai Chi Chuan is beautiful and great. Kung Fu is wonderful. But you need to learn in one or two moves how to take down someone who wants to hurt you. I consider that to be Torah, psychic self-defense, physical self-defense, and the most realistic application of a protection from evil. Again, Kabbalistically speaking, we live in the physical world of Asiyah, Malchut, the kingdom. This is the world where things get done physically. If you want to defend against dark arts, yes, you can put the Shivitis up on your wall. They will help train your mind. I teach about these things in our other class from my book, Walking in the Fire. These items are available on our website. And yes, you should have them in your house. But at the same time, don't think that one thing is good without the other. Yes, you should be wearing a shirt, a sweater, as the case may be. But don't think that's enough. You still need to wear your pants. What can I say? Am I not making sense here? Yes, you need the spiritual, but yes, you need the physical. Remember, like we said, body and soul, they got to be together. So please, I don't care how young you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how healthy. I don't care how feeble. Anyone and everyone can take a self-defense course, wherein which you don't need to learn 101 different things. You just need to learn 2 or 3 different things. But you practice them over and over and over again so they become second nature. So if and when you're ever at that moment, boom! You know what to do and how to do it, and it's done. And, again, I will never promote violence, God forbid. I will certainly never promote any type of violation of the law. But at the same time, for those of you who say, we're going to call the police, I'll tell you what, it's illegal to do this, so please don't do this. But if you could, you'd call 911 and you say, somebody's here trying to murder me. Please help. See how fast they get there. See if in the time that they would get there, somebody, if they were really there, could murder you and be out the door before the cops came. That, unfortunately, is the reality. The police are not there to prevent crime. They can't be everywhere. But, they do what they can. Let's take a quick review of what happened in this episode that happened in New Jersey the other day. Let's look at the reality. This was not a conspiracy by a hate organization who specifically and intentionally targeted. That's not what happened. You had a couple. Doesn't matter what color they are, black, white, red, or blue. None of that matters. Down in their luck. They were living in a van together. They became susceptible to an extremist view of religion which promoted hatred. Doesn't matter what religion it was. Right? Doesn't matter white, black, red, or blue. Like I tell you, that's not the point. They apparently performed an act of violence. They were under suspicion by a police officer. They apparently got into a gunfight with that police officer and killed him. And they were on the lam. They then stopped in front of that location, which their hate group identified for them as the enemy, which in this case was a Jewish store. Walked in, guns blazing, you know the rest of the story. What would have happened if individuals in that store were armed? If the owner of the store had a gun under the counter, would things have gone differently? No one can say, that's for sure. But I'll tell you this, it could have. Because think of it like this. I would rather have a gun, even if I don't need it, than not have it when I do need it. If there was a firearm ready with somebody trained and obviously legal to have in that location at that time, and somebody burst in, they could have returned fire, and who knows, lives could have been saved. When Ellie and I were getting together, for those of you who don't know, the Rabbinitis is from Paris, And the security in Parisian synagogues is pretty intense. Ellie and I went to a synagogue on Sukkot, Simchat Torah actually, and they had guards. No, they're not allowed to be armed in Paris, but they had guys there, and they didn't know who I was. I couldn't speak French a word, and they were going to let me in. They wanted my passport. I said, it's a holiday. I'm not carrying, and I got in because I was able to convince them in Hebrew that I was an Israeli like they were. And because we were able to schmooze, they could see I was kosher. And that's what we got into the shul. They had armed guards. Not armed guards, but had locked gates and everything else. After that episode happened in Pittsburgh, when that guy went in there and shot up the synagogue there. Our synagogue in Allentown has two guys stand by the door. They open the door, welcome everybody, good Shabbos and stuff. One of them is, I think he's a retired police officer. He's armed. And there was even a police car in front. They understood. Anybody who comes near to that synagogue, they're covered, they're watched. No one's going to get in there. I know many a rabbi who will legally conceal carry. And I am all the more for that for everyone. There are places like New York and New Jersey and Chicago where they don't allow anybody to carry. And that's a big problem. So much so that I would encourage Jews not even to live there anymore. Yeah. Can you imagine if we had like a 250,000 Jews like leaving New York? that would be an exodus like in the days of Moses. It should only be. Guys, I'm not a fan of New York. I'm from New York. I left it 30 years ago, and thank God, I only go back for vacations now. It's a great place to vacation. I wouldn't want to live there. I hear there's actually a movement now in upstate New York to break away from the city of New York. All the power to them. God bless it. I hope they can succeed. But places like this, which have such knee-jerk reaction to guns, which guns cause violence. No, they don't. People cause violence. What do you think happens when people don't have guns? Matter of fact, here, the perpetrators of this crime in Jersey, they didn't have pistols. They probably couldn't get them. They got long arms, rifles. It's a lot easier to get a rifle than it is a pistol. Maybe that's why they had them. You hear many terrorist attacks with people with knives. You want to buy a knife? You don't need a combat strategic knife. You go to Walmart and you could buy a kitchen knife for what, $3? Trust me, it'll kill somebody's strategic knife. And you got all these crazies out there, and that's exactly what they do. Now, like I said, in Paris, they understand that they have to be on guard. Here, some synagogues, like I said, in Allentown, they know they have to be on guard. What happened in Pittsburgh, God only knows. But we have to understand this today. Psychic self-defense and physical self-defense are one and the same, and both are the ultimate expression for protection from evil. With regards to firearms, I wrote something many, many years ago, 16 and a half years ago to be exact. I wrote it here on May 6th, 2003. It's called A Letter to My Haredi Neighbor. And it discusses a lot of the points that we've been talking about now. And even though it's a wee bit, it's about 3 pages. It's available online. You go to our KosherTorah website, KosherTorah.com, and go into our little Google search there, put in Haredi Neighbor. You'll get a copy of this. All right? I want to read to you the story, because I'm going to read to you from start to end, and you'll get a flavor of exactly what I am saying here. Somebody's talking about sharpening a piece of metal with the sides of the point. There's so many ways. You want to make a weapon? You could use shoelaces as a weapon. You can use a belt as a weapon. Learn to use your hands and your feet. That's the best way to do. Know how to strike at ears and eyes and nose and throat. And many people in law enforcement are going to say that's lethal and that could be illegal. And I'm going to back you up. I'm back them up on that. All right? You do not promote or provoke or initiate violence against anyone for any reason. That's never right. But they start with you. No. C'est la vie. That's life. Maybe better say that's death. What I'm about to relate to you actually happened, I'm reading. Indeed, it happened only moments ago. I wrote this as a response to something that happened. It's a nice spring afternoon in Chicago. I just returned from teaching at the yeshiva. I was a rebbe at the Brisk Yeshiva for many years. My 3-year-old, Michael, for those of you who know him, he was waiting all day long to go outside with me so that we could have a water gun fight. After we both got a little soaked in the backyard, we decided to go out and sit in the front of the house along with two of our neighbors and their children. One of their neighbors' boys saw our water guns and asked to join in the play. His mother adamantly refused, saying how she and her husband, who was a good Kollel guy, strongly objected to guns and refused to let their children play with them. There was enough violence in the world, the neighbor said. Being politically correct, I politely disagreed with her decision, and in a single statement shared my view that we Jews have to learn how to defend ourselves for our own protection. Actually, my neighbor at the time, I think she was like 8 months pregnant. I'm certainly not going to get into an argument with a pregnant woman. That we don't do. So, continuing. As I walked away, I realized that there were many more words going through my head. And I said to myself, I should have shared these views with my neighbor, but I realized that it was not the right time or place, like I said. So I came inside to write this piece. This, then, is my letter to my Haredi neighbor. Like I said, I wrote this in 2003, and I think every word of it is as applicable today as it was then. My dear neighbor, you are absolutely right. There is a tremendous amount of violence in our world today. However, you do realize that a good portion of that violence is directed against innocent women like you and against beautiful young children like yours. For the only reason that you are Jews. Fine Jewish men like your husband become targets of violence simply because of their being a Jew. Ultra-Orthodox, Haredim, like to put their faith in God. Well, so do all religious Jews, whether we are national Zionist or black hat Haredi. The difference between us is that the black hat Haredi did not learn from the lessons of World War II Nazi death camps. In wartime Europe, all the prayers and faith and religious observance of the Haredim did not help them or save them. The ones surviving the camps were the ones who fought to survive. While many of the fighters fought with their prayers, they also fought with their guns. And I am sure God heard their prayers. And that is why the Holy One, blessed be He, gave them guns in order to defend themselves. Unfortunately, this is not a lesson that Haredi ultra-Orthodox ears are willing to hear today. But actually, that's starting to change because a number of Haredim that I know today are armed. But for everyone else, those who we can maybe call of the liberal slant, today living in the comforts of exile in America and Europe and elsewhere, the Holocaust is ancient history, an event best forgotten and not remembered. Now, true, if the world had indeed changed for the better, then I too would follow that direction. Yet, with Jews being murdered in Israel, amongst them Haredim, international anti-Semitism on the rise, with reports of attacks against synagogues and individual Jews happening throughout the Western world, the time has not yet come to forget the Holocaust. Mind you, the people who were killed in Jersey City were ultra-Orthodox Haredim. No, my dear neighbor, as holy and pious as you are, the time has not yet come to put down the gun. On the contrary, we are commanded to teach Torah diligently to our children, Deuteronomy 6:7. One of the commandments of the Torah is to survive and know how to survive. Indeed, there is an entire chapter in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, section Orach Chaim 329, that dedicated to the laws of how and when to fight a threatening enemy. I often wonder how many of the yeshivas today skip over that chapter and ignore its teachings. More and more people living outside of Israel being attacked. This is a time when I lived in Chicago. Here in our own Chicago neighborhood, our neighbors have been shot at and our synagogues firebombed. Jews have been murdered in the streets of New York, Toronto, and Los Angeles. Now we can add Jersey City. Their only crime was that they were Jews. I personally know of 2 occasions when my own students, boys at a local Haredi yeshiva, Brisk, were mugged on the street, right on Devon Avenue. Right? One right in front of the yeshiva itself. The muggers had no weapons other than intimidation. They robbed the boys of more than their money. They robbed them of their pride. The muggers got away with more than money. They got away with knowing that Jews are easy targets who will not fight back to defend themselves. My dear neighbor, we live in a violent world. Our Torah and our God has taken this into account. We have divinely ordained laws to live by, laws that demand we defend ourselves and know how to defend ourselves. I cannot deny the Torah's teachings. I cannot deny the danger that surrounds all of us Jews on a daily basis. I cannot deny that we all need to provide for our own self-defense. While it is a true and good thing to rely on the police and authorities to protect us, nonetheless, police officers are only human. They cannot be wherever they are needed when they are needed. If only this was the case, we would have no crime. Yet we do have crime. Jews are very often the victim, and there is nothing the police can do other than to pick up the pieces after the fact, just like in Jersey City. A lot of good this does the victim. My dear neighbor, in my opinion, the Torah teaches us not to be victims. We are instead to be victors. In this light, I've trained in the martial arts for over 30 years. I may not be as good a fighter as I was when I was in my younger years, but I know I'm capable of not only defending my family, I can also defend your family. You do not have to worry about becoming a victim as long as I am your neighbor. For although you will not defend to fight yourself, I will fight to defend you. And although you will not pick up a gun to protect your family, I will. I'm not afraid of doing the right thing. I'm not afraid of violence. I'm not afraid to defend you. In addition, my dear neighbor, I know if the situation were reversed, there would be nothing that you could do to defend me or my family. You would have to act with violence to do that, and you're totally unprepared and incapable of acting in that manner. While I do not own a gun, because handguns were mostly illegal here in Chicago at the time, nonetheless, I've trained to marksman status, and I know of numerous ways how to disarm a perpetrator. In the event of any anti-Semitism striking our homes, I will run to defend my home and yours. In case you ask me why I'm so willing to possibly die for you, the answer is simple. This is what Torah teaches us to do. I live by God's Torah, and if I need to, I'll die for it as well. My dear neighbor, next time you wish to be so boldly proclaim your opposition to guns, remember this. It'll be someone like me with a gun who will be defending someone like you without one. I will raise my son to know these things so that he too, after me, may be a hero and a patriot, as well as being a faithful observer of the Torah. My son, I pray, will learn the Torah and martial arts. I will teach him to defend the Torah against its enemies and defend fellow Jews against our enemies. There's only one thing that I do not understand. Why, my dear neighbor, are you not willing to educate your children in the same way? That's what I have to say. If we want to understand self-defense, yes, you must have a strong mind. You must have a strong heart. You must understand the ways and means and ebb and flow of psychic energy and to deal with the practicalities of these things. In our future classes here on Protection from Evil, we will discuss more of that. We will discuss psychic self-defense and the like. But recognize and know something. You can have every Kabbalistic amulet in the world. You can do all the Kabbalistic rituals. And you will indeed succeed in defending yourself against psychic and spiritual attacks. But physical attacks? Not necessarily. You might still be subject to that. Because the physical, that goes by its own rules. And therefore you have to fight the physical war by its own rules. And that is what I have to say to you now. So ultimately, again, I'm repeating myself, and that's fine. Overcome any opposition you would have to having a firearm for self-defense. I remember listening to a program on television within the last year, I would think. It was a discussion of a debate on guns. It was on this, I think I don't know much about the show. It's a very liberal talk show of women. I think it's called Five or something like that. It's with Whoopi Goldberg and a woman named Behar and some others. And they were discussing how they were so much opposed to assault weapons, AR-15s, Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, and the like. But they made a point that they were not opposed to having, The View, that's the name of the show, The View? Okay, thank you. Somebody in text here corrected me. Again, I don't know these things. Sorry. But they all made it very clear that they were not opposed to legally owned firearms for self-defense. And these women themselves acknowledged on public television that each one of them was a concealed carrier, having a permit. They all carried guns. They all recognized the value and needs of self-defense. Understand this. The world is not a safer place when you don't have a gun. The world is a safer place when you do. Because, again, if someone is looking for a victim and they see your hand is going someplace where they can't see, and you're watching them, they're looking at you saying, what's under that coat? What's in that hand? No, I don't think I'm going to pick on this person, this man or this woman. Right? They don't know if you're putting your hand in there. They don't know if you're going to pull out a gun. Martial arts, right? Again, think of your body language. Think of how you appear. If you appear like a victim, you will be treated like a victim. If you look and act in a provocative manner, that is how you will be treated. If you look, again, forgive me using the vernacular, you look like a pussy, you're going to be treated like a pussy. You look like a badass, you'll be respected as a badass. Okay? One of the places for those of you, by the way, yes, let me throw that in here. If you are going to own a firearm, I don't care if it's a pistol or something, obviously you must follow your local laws. That should hopefully never have to be said. But also, train yourself with proper courses, proper methods, so that you know how to use it, and proper safety and everything else. It's very, very important. Body language, very, very important. As many of you know, I love going to Gold's Gym. Yeah, I've even got my Gold's Gym t-shirt still on from going to the gym from before. And the one place I love going to Gold's Gym, of course, is in Venice Beach, the original in California. We go there sometimes 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, only time you can really find parking. And you got all these big, burly, serious men and women. Go look this up on Google. You have 70 and 80-year-old bodybuilders. I remember seeing a story in the news not too long ago of this 80-year-old woman bodybuilder. Somebody broke her in her house and she beat the snot out of him. And she's sitting there showing the bicep to the person on television. Kol hakavod. No, it's good. Good for her. Never allow yourself to become a victim, especially if you are a Jew, because that propagates and people will think all Jews are victims. You don't see members of gangs being victimized. You don't see members of outlaw biker groups become victimized. You see only the weak become victimized. Don't be weak. Be strong. That is the Torah message. I have some of my eBooks online at KosherTorah.com which speak all about these things, hopefully with inspirational words. They're for free. I put those up there because I consider them so fundamental, so important. I want them to have access to everybody. Somebody is saying, urgent to be trained. Do not carry a gun you are not fully trained to use. You will kill someone innocent or yourself. Those words are truth. All right? That's exactly why I quoted, this guy named Lawrence here. Very, very important. You must be properly trained in any and everything you use. Even if you carry a knife, learn how to use it properly. Take courses in Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, practical day-to-day type of fighting skills. Learn how to fight. I don't care anymore about the kung fu and all the fancy, beautiful stuff that's wonderful for health and spirit. But for fighting on a day-to-day basis, you need to know how to kick butt. That's how Krav Maga began. And that's still, to this day, my martial art of choice. So, okay. We're kind of at the top of the hour. Got a few extra minutes here, but I got the point across. Protection from evil starts with you. Protection from evil begins in this world, and then we'll take it to the spiritual world. In our last class, we began to speak about some of those things, and in our next class, we will again. I'll talk to you about the laws of attraction, the secrets of what we call tatagavar, and all this other stuff. But right now, as we say, davar be'ito matov. Everything in its time is for good. And this is the time to discuss self-defense, not for Jews only, for all of us. Please take this seriously. Don't just nod your head and agree with me. Do something about it. As we say in the famous prayer, Baruch She'amar, Baruch ha'omer ve'oseh. Blessed be the one who says and does. Find yourself a good hand-to-hand combat, local place, maybe even just a seminar to learn a few things over a period of a few weeks. That's all you need. Consider a legally owned firearm with all the appropriate proper training. And if there's any other kind of a self-defense weapon that you are legally allowed to possess or carry, please consider to do so once you are properly trained in its usage. This is the Torah way, and this is what's necessary. Don't be a victim. Always be a victor. That is the way of our Torah. Consider what we have to offer you at our KosherTorah School, and we've got plenty there for you. So thank you again for joining me and for allowing me to share with you about these things. Somebody's mentioning you got the mace, you have bear spray, you have all different types of things. Google, research for yourself, but make sure you know what you're doing and how to do it. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, wishing you my blessings, wishing you safety and all good things. I'll see you all next time. God bless.